Hello, Links family. My name is Jennifer Sobanet, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of CU Denver. As you all know, we're going to have a town hall the afternoon of May 8th. And during that town hall, I'll be joined by Chancellor Harrell and Provost Nairn. And we'll be asked many of the questions that have come from all of you over the past week and a half or so. We'll be asked a lot of questions. And Michael Zinzer, Faculty Assembly Chair, and Michelle Larson-Krieg, Staff Council Chair, will be going through these series of questions. And what I would like to do today is provide you a framework to understand the answers to the questions that we'll be providing. I typically struggle with trying to take complex information and understand it if I don't have a framework into which I can place all of the information so that I can assemble that into my own brain and understand it. So what I would like to do today is provide all of you with the framework that I use in my brain to understand the complex information that we're going to be sharing at the town hall and even beyond Friday's town hall, other communiques and ways to provide you all with information. And so I encourage you to sit through this video. It's going to be a little bit technical, and I apologize for that, but it's just me trying to provide for each of you the framework that you can use as we go through the difficult journey that we're on, managing the impacts of COVID-19 on the university's budget. Now, I walked through this with the Budget Priorities Committee of the Faculty Assembly on Monday, and they encouraged me to put this video together. So hopefully this will help explain things and provide everybody a little bit of a framework into which we can put the answers to all of our questions. So my framework is a layer cake. And on the top of every layer cake, and this is an 8-layer layer cake, on the top of every cake that we all enjoy are candles for whatever celebration we're having. Well, on the top of the CU Denver layer cake is our strategic priorities, because what we all want going through this time of the pandemic and after is that we can hold on to our strategic priorities and be able to thrive in bringing those strategic priorities to life during this pandemic and after. So the top of our layer cake is our strategic priorities. Then what I'm going to talk through for each of the layers of the layer cake is our budget tools that we use in each of those layers, as well as how we can influence the decision makers in each of those layers. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the cake. And the very first layer of this cake is the federal government. And the federal government is a very important player in creating the foundation of our financial sustainability through the pandemic. And as all of you, I'm sure, have been reading in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, the CARES Act was passed by the Congress. And what it does is it provides stimulus funding in many different ways. And the ways that it impacts the CU Denver budget is through a direct appropriation of about $10 million to CU Denver Anschutz. $5 million of that goes to our students directly, and then $5 million will go to the institution. The people who can really influence how that stimulus money was designed and created are our very own CU leadership. So who is influencing the federal government to help CU Denver Anschutz receive stimulus funding through the CARES Act? That's primarily our CU leadership. That involves everyone from our Board of Regents, President Kennedy, our chancellors, our Office of Government Relations, our system staff. And they have tirelessly been working to help us have the CARES Act money to be able to help create the building blocks of a successful budget, also known as our layer cake. The next layer of the layer cake is the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado is also influenced by our CU leadership team, the same team that's helping us with the federal government. The state of Colorado has a couple of different ways that they can impact our budget and a couple of different tools that they can use. First of all, as they do every year, they set limitations on our tuition rate increases. We call that our tuition cap. They also will be allocating discretionary funds from the CARES Act, and they'll be able to decide how that gets distributed across all of state government. Other ways, other tools that they have to use, because the state of Colorado just yesterday declared a financial emergency, they will be able to decide the classified employee impacts as well as any adjustments to the para benefits for state employees. Now the next layer is actually a little bit of frosting in our layer cake, and that is the city of Denver. And we bring them into this layer cake because the city of Denver will have influence over our CU Denver Safe Return Planning Team and the decisions that we can make about when and how we begin to reopen the campus and bring faculty, staff, and students back to the campus. So they will be able to, their decisions around different orders around stay at home will impact how we can navigate our safe return to campus. The next layer of the layer cake is the Board of Regents. And the Board of Regents have the decision-making tools and the budget-setting tools of deciding our merit pool for all of our university employees and faculty, as well as the tuition and fee decisions for the fiscal year 21 budget. Now, the Board of Regents can be influenced by our faculty council, our staff council, and our inter-campus student forum, as well as, of course, all of us. The next layer of our layer cake is the CU System Office, and that's the office where President Kennedy and the system staff reside. And they can also be influenced by our faculty council, our staff council, and the inter-campus student forum. And the areas that they can have impact on our budget are things like they can determine system-wide benefit changes that might make a difference in our budget. They manage our investments and our debt. And so in some ways that's revenue generation, as well as if we ever would need to look at our debt and any restructurings of our debt, they could help us with that. And finally, they could create efficiencies by centralizing different services, just like employee services is now centralized across all of the CU campuses. That's a way of creating efficiencies in our budgets. Then the next layer of the layer cake is CU Denver Anschutz. And so that's the consolidated institution of CU Denver and Anschutz. And as you know, we've already made some decisions at this level of tools that we can use. We've implemented a hiring chill, and we've implemented travel restrictions. And those all of you are already feeling. Then the next layer of the layer cake is the Auraria Higher Education Center. And as you all know, we are part of the tri-institutional campus known as the Auraria campus. And our sister institutions, Community College of Denver and MSU Denver, and ourselves, CU Denver, work directly with the AHEC team to run the Auraria campus. And so we are part of the team that will help manage any AHEC operating and auxiliary revenue shortfalls by not having people on campus right now. So I'm just going to say, as you watch me go up this layer cake, what I'm doing is going from more global decisions that can be made to more local decisions that can be made. So you'll see that become more apparent over the next couple of layers of our layer cake. So the next layer is actually some frosting first, and that is our reserves. The CU Denver reserves. We have been very steadfastly growing our reserves over the past couple of years as we put into place our incentive-based budget model. And what that will allow us to do is, as we have to make decisions around our FY21 budget, which starts July 1, is we will use reserves to help cushion the reductions that we have to make in our expense budget. And that cushion, of course, buys us time, and it also buys us the ability to make more strategic decisions. So then in the CU Denver layer of the layer cake, what are the things that we can use at the CU Denver layer? Well, I mentioned we can utilize reserves. The other thing that we can utilize that would be cutting across all of CU Denver would be implementing temporary furloughs and implementing temporary pay cuts. We can also slow our deferred maintenance of our buildings. So when you think about who can influence the CU Denver campus-wide decisions, well, certainly that is faculty assembly, staff council, and student government association, as well as all of us on this call together. Now the next layer, before we go to the final layer of this layer cake, there's some more frosting, and that frosting is enrollment. And as we know, 80% of our funds come from student tuition and fees. So we have a lot of impact that all of us can have on our budget by making sure that enrollment comes in for summer and for fall of 2020. And by that I mean both recruitment and retention of our current students. So if there's one thing everybody can do that can really help make a difference in our budget, is to help us grow enrollment. Then the final layer of the layer cake is our schools, colleges, and central support units. The central support units are made up of academic and student affairs, as well as our central service administration, as well as the units that report directly into Chancellor Harrell. The budget tools and this is where we become very narrow and more strategic. The closer we get to the work that we do, the more strategic we can be around the budget tools that we use. And so these are the types of decisions that a vice chancellor or a dean would be able to make around the cuts that have to take place. And dipping into school and college reserves is a great budget tool, as are reassessing and looking at any vacancies that we're holding, looking at operating reductions or creating a chill on our expenses in our operating budgets. We can use voluntary separations, reorganizations of units, as well as program eliminations. Again, who can influence this? Of course, it's the faculty and staff who are inside of each of the schools and colleges, as well as the staff who are part of the central support units. Talking to your supervisors, having them talk to the leaders of those units is a very good way to provide input and feedback on the different budget tools that we are using to be able to make our layer cake as solid as possible so that we can have success in driving for our strategic priorities, both through this pandemic timeframe and after, especially as we're preparing for more students to be coming to CU Denver as they're looking to change their careers, and for us to be able to be prepared to help our community in adjusting to the new normal that will be our lives as the pandemic is resolved and as we move into a new way of being. The research and the education that we provide to our community and to our students is going to be fundamental to the city and the state coming back after this time. So that's the 8-layer cake of our budget. And the one thing I want to tell you is Over time, we will know more about each of the layers of the layer cake and decisions that are made that then create a more clear picture for all of us as we work towards understanding what our budget will look like for FY21. My advice, my last bit of advice is come back to this layer cake. Whenever we're having town halls, whenever we're providing communiques, please come back to the layer cake and figure out where each of these pieces belong so that we can all, as the Links family together, come together and understand the picture as it clarifies, and we can begin to understand what our FY21 budget will look like. Thank you.